Hello, everyone. Glad that you're tuning in. We're going to take a look today at some security and safety measures that you can do on your computer to keep you safe and secure. In life, when we perceive a problem that we feel is too complicated, we ignore it. That's what we do as people until the problem blows up, right? It's not a very good way to go about. But the same thing happens with security and safety. How do you keep your system secure? How do you keep yourself safe? We just kind of ignore it because most people think it's way too difficult. So what I'm going to do is give you some simple things that you can do. That's the idea here. Some things that really are not that technical. I know I have a lot of students that go, "Oh no, he's talking technical stuff," and they just let their brain shut down, which is not good because you're never going to get around the technical stuff. It's always going to be a part of your life. So just realize that I'm trying to make this simple so you can just go out and say, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and bam, you're ready to go, right? Okay, so security and safety, here's my little slideshow. The first thing that you have to realize is that the internet is the Wild West. It's a dangerous place. We like to believe it's not, but it's a real dangerous place. A lot of people in our society today don't remember how the West was won, and it was won with swift justice. That's how it was won. But on the internet, you can have people trying to steal your stuff all the time. As a matter of fact, if I pulled up the log, your router firewall at your houses actually keeps a log of what is happening on what they call the WAN port. In other words, the port that's connected to the internet, the wide area networking port, the internet port. And you're being attacked all the time. I mean, thousands of times in an hour, somebody's trying to get into your network. When you see that kind of thing, you have a much better understanding of, oh wow, this is real, and you can look it up. You can go on your router and say, hey, show me the log, and it'll show that to you. You also have to realize that everyone is your next door neighbor. See, electrons are really fast, and even though it might take a few seconds to even 15 seconds to pull up a website from Japan or China or India, that's really fast. That also means that anybody in India, anybody in China, anybody in Japan, anybody in Russia is really only about 15 seconds away from your computer. Everyone is your next door neighbor. In life, we tend to try to move to a safe neighborhood, right? And we all know that there's dangerous neighborhoods and safe neighborhoods. And one of the benefits of making more money in life is that you get to move to a safer neighborhood. Well, that's us physically distancing ourselves from danger. That's what we're doing. You can't do that on the internet. You can't physically distance yourself from anybody. Everybody's your next door neighbor out there. So realize that. Sharing is not caring, not on the internet. You may be sharing information about where you are and what your passwords are. And that's important. People share a lot of information without really thinking of the problems. You will do an assignment a little later called digital footprint, where you'll actually look for yourself online. And then that kind of really comes home and people start to realize, oh, wow, I could actually physically find somebody easily. And so be aware of what you're sharing and don't share things that you really don't need to. So passwords are your first line of defense and often your only line of defense. These days, they have two-factor authentication. And really what that means is that you have a password and then you have a phone number and an email, something else that's attached to you that can authenticate you. So if you're not using two-factor authentication on everything, you need to start using it. What it really requires for you to do is, it really depends on the system, but most commonly you put in an email and then they send you a code to the email, or you put in a phone number and they send a text message to the phone number with a code in it, right? Well, basically what they're trying to say is, yeah, we understand that you have the password. We know you have the password. You type that in, but do you have this person's device or access to their email? That's what that second part is. And so when you get that text code and it says, okay, go ahead and enter that little code, it'll last for 10 seconds or 25 seconds or a minute, whatever they decide to do. you're basically proving that you have this physical thing. And those are two separate factors. I know a password and I have a physical device, or I have access to an email system. So set up two-factor authentication. I actually use Outlook for my email, and I use iCloud for my email. And the reasons I use both of those, and Outlook's a little better, to tell you the truth. On Outlook, it actually will flag logins from other locations that you haven't been. I actually got information saying somebody was trying to get into my email account, and it was in Croatia several years ago. And I could just click the little link that they had in their email, and then I could say, no, that's not me. And now nobody in Croatia can ever try to log into my account. And that'll only be a problem if I ever visit Croatia, because then I'll be locked out, right? So it's really fancy stuff, which is awesome. Anyway, let's get back to the passwords here. Your passwords should be complex. They really should. And as you know, you shouldn't use a password for everything. If you're gonna use one password and try to use it for everything, then use something like 1Password or your phone. Pretty sure Android does this, but I know iPhones do this, where it'll just put in this really long password that you'll never remember. You'll never remember that password. And then in the phone, have that set up, and that's attached to your iCloud account. So you shouldn't ever lose it, which is fantastic. But 1Password is something that you can use. It'll create super long passwords that you yourself don't know. And then you protect that 1Password account. And as long as you protect that 1Password account with a good password, then you have all your other stuff. Otherwise, you need to use something like what you have on the screen. This is not a psychology class, so psychology will tell you that means something, but I just typed in some random numbers and letters. If that's really hard for you to do, then think about using numbers instead of letters in different places. Put a space where, or an underscore or a dash where people wouldn't expect it, or an exclamation point, something like that, because most people use something about themselves. And so I want you to think about your password right now and try to understand how dangerous it is to use something about yourself. Because if somebody can ask you a number of questions, then they'll get into your account. As a matter of fact, I had a student, I trained him on this stuff in a security class, and they went over to help somebody, a friend, and they had totally forgotten their password. They couldn't get into their phone at all. And they weren't using a PIN, they were using a password. And so he was just talking to him and messing around with it, talking to him, messing around with it. And the person didn't realize that what he was doing was gathering enough information about him to guess the password. And he did. He's like, how did you get into that? Well, I asked you about your dog. I asked you, all this stuff. So think about this for a minute. Think about what your most commonly used password is. And is it a student ID from when you were in high school? Is it a pet name, or, Bubba, a nickname that somebody gave you? Is it is the year you graduated actually part of that? If you are known to play a sport, is that sport involved? Is your password volleyball with the year you graduated, with a score in the middle or an exclamation point in the middle? Is there something that you like a lot? Maybe you're really into the Marvel universe, so you're really into Thor, so that's part of your password. The point is that somebody, given enough time, can socially engineer it out of you. In other words, they can use their skills of questioning to get really close to what your password is. Several years ago, there was a break into some iCloud accounts for several actors, and they had some things exposed that they didn't want exposed. And they're like, they got their accounts hacked, and then they told how they were hacked. And I was like, that's not really hacking. Basically, right? They just figured out what that person was. Maybe Tom Cruise's is I am God. I don't know. And so they just guessed the password because their passwords were really, really crappy. So rethink your password, complicate it more. I often tell people, use something that you know about yourself that nobody ever really thinks of. Maybe you had a dog when you were 5 years old and its name was, but you never ever talk about the dog anymore, right? Why this is important is people share a ton of stuff, right? Sharing is not caring. You get that right. And so they share that stuff all in their Facebook account, and somebody can just monitor that Facebook account and then start guessing their password. You say, oh, no way. And it's like, I could get on your Facebook account, right? I could figure out who your friends are, take a picture of that friend, and then send you a friend request. And you go, oh, something must have happened to their account. Click. And now I'm part of your friends, even though I'm not part of your friends. And so you really need to think about, how can I secure my password to make it really good so that people can't get into it? And also think about that for your higher level stuff, meaning your bank accounts, right? Your bank account password should not be the password to your Gmail account. We need to talk about malware and what malware is. This is a part of your material. You should have already covered this in the material, but most people still don't kind of grasp it. So here's the generality of what malware is. Malware is anything that's malicious, anything that'll delete files, lock you out of files, erase hard disks, whatever it happens to be. Specifically, a virus is part of malware, and a virus may delete your files, but a virus has to be run like a program. That's the thing. A virus has to attach itself to something that can be executed. So for instance, Word, this is actually what the name of the program really is in the system, winword.exe. So if you had a virus, it could attach to WinWord. And then that way, when you opened Word, it opened the virus too. And then the virus goes ahead and does whatever bad things that it wants to do. That's why you get virus protection. Seriously. Now, a worm is basically a smart virus. That's really what it is. A worm is malicious. It may delete files, but it also understands networks, right? So if you and your friend are attached on the Wi-Fi network, it'll go, oh, there's another computer over there, and it'll use the network to copy it to the other person. And it executes on its own. So it doesn't have to attach to some other file and then wait for that file to be run. It can just run. So you get a worm on your system, which these days, most people just say it's a virus, but you download this worm off of a web page and boom, it runs. That's what it does. It's going. It doesn't have to go through the process of attaching itself and waiting for you to run that other thing. All right, so continued, Trojans are the biggest thing. They're honestly the biggest threat that's out there. Now, if you don't remember the story is that the Trojan horse was built after basically they'd laid siege to the city forever. Now, I swear there had to have been alcohol or some other drugs involved in this scenario, because basically what you're saying is they've laid siege, and then because they can't seem to beat you, they just build a big old horse for you. Yay, we lost. So here's why would anybody do that? Anyway, they bring in the horse, right? They bring in this huge horse, not realizing that actually inside is all these bad people that are going to come out and kill them all. And that's where the name comes from. The technical name is a Trojan horse, but we just kind of shorten it. What that means electronically is you go out on the internet and you're like, I hate iTunes. I don't want to use it anymore. So I'm going to get something else. So you go, music player, music aggregator, whatever you want to search for. And here's a whole list of them. And so you start going through and downloading different ones. At least 10 of those, if you downloaded 100, are malware. So what that means is it'll play your music, and you think that's all it's doing. It's just playing music for you. In the background, though, it's doing other stuff. And that is usually gathering your information, going through and looking for things that look like social security numbers, credit card numbers, stuff that really can expose your life. So Trojans are really, really dangerous, because instead of causing that immediate damage and you going, oh my goodness, I have something wrong, it just sits there and goes through this process of gathering information on you. Now, usually people will start to know they have a Trojan because Trojans will install other Trojans. And so pretty soon your whole computer is just working on information gathering on you and sending that out across the internet connection. And you're like, click, why is my computer so slow? This thing is just slow. I can't get it to work right. Yeah, 2 weeks ago or a month ago, you got Trojans, and now it's hurting. Now it's hurting you. So they look and act like real programs, probably are real programs, but they're gathering information behind the scenes that can be very dangerous to be exposed on the internet, passwords and all sorts of stuff. Now, ransomware, this is the one that hits a lot of older people because they kind of fall gullible to these things. But ransomware, if you get that on your machine, it'll say, you know, I locked you out of your address, pay $50, and then you can get all your pictures back. We talk about file systems and backup in another one of these, and so if you have things backed up, you'll be okay. Sometimes ransomware is I don't want to say legitimate. They'll actually get your files back for you. Other times they just take your money and leave you sitting there. These are all real threats, and you've heard stories, and you may even know somebody that this has happened to. Now, I wanted to mention what torrents are and the dangers of torrents. Now, a lot of people don't understand what a torrent is until I describe it, and then they're like, oh, didn't realize I was using torrents. But basically, it's a way to get copyrighted material illegally. That's, I'm just going to say it, 98% of what torrents are used for is to get movies, pictures, videos, all illegally, right? You don't own it, but you want it. And so torrents are a way to do that. Now, torrents have a real use. They're not all just illegal. And so what a torrent does is it actually knows where that file is on a bunch of people's computers. So if you participate in this torrent network, or this peer-to-peer network is what they call it, then basically you say, oh, I want this movie that's really huge. And instead of downloading it from one place, it downloads it from 10, 20, 100 places. And so the download comes in as fast as your internet connection can actually handle. And so it comes down really fast. People love that. You know, a music file is like this big. And so they click it and it's like, boom, you got it. And so that's the way torrents are used. The thing is, though, is because it's used so heavily, if I'm a virus creator, this is a great place to just shove viruses into the video or shove a virus into the music file or whatever. The scariest thing is that there's this thing known as ratting, and it stands for remote admin tools. And it's very easy, it's not difficult, it doesn't take a computing genius to do this, to load on a program on their computer, create a little file that infests a music file or a video file, and then you download what you thought was music and you click it and it doesn't do anything. You're like, oh, click it again. Oh, I don't know, it just doesn't work. I'll just get a different file. That one must be corrupted. When in reality, they just put some code in on your computer that now is going to give a backdoor into your system. And what happens is once that's installed on your computer, it phones home back to the person that has that little control program, and it goes, oh, look at that, another person infested. And then from there, they can try to turn on your camera and they can look through your files and they can do a bunch of stuff. And that happens more and more. Hence the reason why a lot of people will put tape over their camera, right? This is one of the ways that this happens, and it happens a lot. So don't use torrents, pay for this stuff, or you better know what you're doing, or you better know that I'm going to clean that computer off. So what can you do? You have to have malware protection. That's just the matter of fact. First off, don't say to yourself, oh, McBride's blah, 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 he said stuff, and I don't think it's real. It's not that big of a deal. Realize the risk. Realize that you are in the Wild West. There's thousands of people that would like to steal your information, even though you don't think it's important. They'd like to get into your life and mess with you, and you're their next door neighbor. Realize that's a risk, because if you don't, then you won't do any of the rest of this on the page. Surf safely, right? What do I mean by that? Well, if you're looking for the latest gossip on some star, right, then hit the websites that are legit. Hit peoplemagazine.com or whatever it is, or ABC or what. Don't just start clicking through junk, because what people will do is they'll go out and create fake pages, and everyone's hit one of those where you mistype and it's like, what is this page? It's weird. They're immediately trying to execute code on your computer because they know what the popular things to search for are, and they pop up and they do it daily. You know, hey, what's in the big news? This is in the big news, COVID, whatever. and they try to get you to go to those sites and try to infect your computer just from that web page, which yes, is definitely possible to do. So surf safely. Don't just browse all over the place and go wherever you want to go. Don't download unneeded programs. You know, lots of people use their computer like it's a big trash can. I mean, they really do. It's like, oh, I want to try this. I'll try that. I'll try that. I'll try that. I'll try that. And then they never delete anything, and they downloaded a ton of programs they didn't even need. They were just doing stuff, you know, and that can lead to finding a Trojan and getting something that you didn't think you were getting. Windows 10 has something known as Windows Defender built in. It's a security package that actually does virus scanning, does malware scanning, right? It's a firewall. Windows has a firewall built in. It comes with Windows 10 built in. But here's the big problem that happens. Computer resellers or computer sellers like HP, all of them, you know, I say HP and everybody's going to go, oh, see, they're bad. HP, Dell, Acer, Asus, all of them, all the PCs that have Windows 10, basically. What they do is they preload programs and then saying, hey, look at that, we got this preloaded stuff because we like you so much. Really, they're getting paid from those companies. So when you see Norton's and it's preloaded on your new PC, or McAfee, it's preloaded on your new PC, it wasn't because they cared about you. It was because they got paid by Norton and McAfee, or one of those, to put that on. That's how it works. It lowers the cost of that machine to them. When you have those things running, most people don't ever delete it, and that's an issue. What happens is you go, hey, you got Norton's free for a year if you're lucky. Usually it's 6 months, and then after 6 months, it is still running, but it's not fully active. What I'm telling you, cut to the chase. Remove all other malware protection so Defender will be active, or pay for the service that came with it. Right? So there's some really awesome stuff out there. Malwarebytes, Sophos, they're great. AVG, they're really great. If you want their service, then pay. Pay 60 bucks a year, 45 bucks a year, whatever it is. A lot of them are multiples, right? So I know Sophos is what I use because I can use it on the Mac, I can use it on Windows, I can use it on like 5 devices. But pay for it every year. It's going to cost you 60 bucks or whatever, and have it running. Good to go. But see, people don't do that. They're like, oh, well, you know, it was 6 months ago and it keeps popping up and telling me that I'm not protected, but I can look down on the bottom and see that little icon there. So I got them. And it's like, no, you didn't. Virus scanning software, malware scanning software works with something known as a signature file. It's a way to identify a virus or a piece of malware. Those signature files get downloaded every single day to your computer, or even on the hour, depending on how bad things are. They come off the internet and it protects you. If you have, to make it again simple, if you have Norton's running on your computer, but it says that 6 months ago it stopped working, then you are protected from any virus that's 6 months old. Any new virus that's come out, it won't catch. It doesn't know how to catch it because it has to have the signature file. I wish they'd call it a picture file because that works a lot better. It's really like a little picture of what that program is. And those pictures get updated every day if you're paying for the service. So if you're not going to pay for the service, don't go out and get some free version of Avast or whatever. They often get paid by malware companies to not see them. Uninstall what you have. And indeed, Norton or McAfee is going to tell you that the world is ending as you uninstall their stuff. But once it's all uninstalled, this Windows 10 Defender just kicks right on. It just goes, boom, thanks a lot, I'm working now. You don't have to do anything special to make it happen. You just take the stuff off that you're not paying for, and then Windows 10 Defender will work. Otherwise, pay for their service. This stuff is important to have on your computer. One day, you may unfortunately realize how important. Download apps from the Microsoft Store. If you're running Windows 10, download apps from the Microsoft Store. Go there first. Hey, I'm looking for a video editor, Microsoft Store video editor. Look there first because they're scanning that stuff to make sure no viruses are coming in with it. Last note, Lots of people have Macs now, they run Mac OS. You have to have virus protection too. I'll have students really screw this up on the test, right? One of the questions will be, do you need virus protection on a Mac? And they'll go, nope, you don't. Mac OS and iOS are two separate things. Mac OS runs on the Macs. iOS runs on their iPads. That's actually iPad OS, but iOS runs on their, right? That's where the store is screening all the stuff and all of that to protect you. So iOS doesn't need any kind of virus protection. iPad OS does not need any kind of virus protection, but Mac OS does. Their computers need it. Download virus protection for Mac OS. Do they have some built in? Yes, they do. Is it less likely that you'll get a virus on a Mac? Yes, but only because they're a minority. The more popular they become, the more viruses have been made or malware have been made for them. So Windows 10 needs malware protection. Mac OS needs malware protection. If you're running Linux, you need malware protection, right? Any of those desktop systems need it. If you have any questions on this stuff, because I can really, I can go on and I can dig in further and further into this information. But if you have any questions, just, let me know.